Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, February 13th, 7 p.m. Tonight we're having a series of committee meetings. We're going to start off with the Finance and Personnel Committee. And council members, although we usually separate and just have Finance Committee up here, given the nature of the up and down and the broad discussion with the Committee of the Whole coming up, we're just going to have everybody stay in place. Finance and Personnel Committee is chaired by Councilmember Crowell, and the other committee members are Council members Reisner, Ziff, and Spielness.
Thank you, President Isley. Tonight on our Finance and Personnel Committee agenda, we have two items which we are not going to get to tonight. The Outdoor Recreation Council of Appalachia annual report and annual membership fee. I believe that has been rescheduled for March 13th.
Correct.
So we were going to go right on to the third item on our agenda, appropriations. The first item is an appropriation of $5,000 to the general fund, lands and buildings, for the Armory and the Hudson Avenue building electricity payments. Are there any questions from the committee about the $5,000 electricity payments for the Armory or the Hudson Avenue building? Moving on.
What
yes,
exactly
Member
is
Reisner. What is electricity payment?
Yeah.
So these lights, I'm sorry.
A little more detail than that, I think. You have an answer?
So I do. For the last 30 years, we've paid, well, not quite 30, but 25 years that we've owned both of those facilities. We've paid the utility bills out of a special fund called the Armory and Hudson Building Fund. That fund has no revenue. And so every year we will transfer money into that fund in order to make the utility bill payments. We basically made the determination here recently that it makes no sense to continue to have those as a separate fund since it has no revenue. And so the idea would be that instead we can sunset that fund, pay out the rest of the money that exists in that fund, and use the general fund. So 101-112 TC 300s, which is the lands and buildings portion of the general fund to pay for that, just like we do City Hall or the Law Administration
Right.
Building.
Thank you. Answer
Any
my
other
question.
questions? Members of the public? Anything else to add? Okay, moving on to the next appropriation item. I'm going to talk about the next three together. $33,680 to the General Fund Fire for a State of Ohio grant from the State Fires Marshal. The next item is $49,808.56 to the General Fund Fire for a State of Ohio grant from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation for extrication tools. And finally, $130,000 to the General Fund Fire from a FEMA grant for hose and nozzle replacement. These are grants that the fire department has secured, but they do not have the money yet. And so if I understand correctly, Service Safety Director Stone, we will use general fund for these purchases and then be reimbursed when the grant money comes in? Please.
Correct, Member Crowell, that's absolutely correct. And all three of these will move forward with separate ordinances. They're all reimbursement type grants. The Marks Radio grant, which is from the State Fire Marshal, is a fully funded. There's no match required for that, and that's about a $33,000 one. The amounts are listed here. That one we have to spend by July 1st. And then once we spend it, we'll get that money back from the State Fire Marshal. The Ohio BWC fund for the extrication tools, that's a 3-to-1 match. And that is 90 days after receipt of funds. So basically that we have to get that spent. So we're going to appropriate that money first, get it spent, and then that money will come in at some time during readings, and we'll have that go back into the general fund. And then lastly, the FEMA one, we actually don't have an award letter for that yet, and that's the largest one here. That's requires a 10% match, so it's 90% funded. We'll do that up front for hoses and nozzles, but we have a year to get that spent from the time that we get the award letter. So the first two will come forward next week. The last one we don't expect, because we don't expect to have the award letter in hand, and we want to wait till we have that award letter in hand before we bring it forward. But given that we've talked about it this evening, we'll just go to first reading whenever that award letter comes in.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee on these three appropriation items for the fire department? Anything else from the mayor? Anybody from the public like to speak to this? Okay, moving on to the next item. We got a donation from Ann Moneypenny and Michael Kleinman. Thank you very much, in the amount of $1,000. And this was specifically donated to restore the function of the very large fans at the Athens Community Center. Again, I'd like to thank Ann Moneypenny and Michael Kleinman for this donation. And this appropriation is to the Community Center Fund in the capital line. Are there any questions from the committee on this donation?
No,
Except to thank,
very nice.
yes, Member Swank.
This is a great donation. I'm just curious, say large fans, are you talking about the big fans that about blow you over when you're up on the walking track, those fans, or some different fans?
The ones on the ceiling.
Ones on the ceiling?
It's not the ones on the track.
Right,
It's
right,
the
okay.
large ones that hang over the courts.
Okay, and they weren't working, I take it?
And, I mean, we can use regular maintenance funds, but we wanted to make a point to recognize the donors in this particular instance. So, we could have just kind of let this one go through, but we thought it would be appropriate to actually come forward and recognize them for their gracious donation.
Great.
Right.
Yes, Mayor McCary.
Thank you. Am I correct in assuming we don't often see these kinds of donations from private citizens to help the public causes?
I'll have to say that I believe this couple have donated before, so another reason why to recognize them. I'll let the mayor speak to that.
We have on occasion received donations from citizens. There have been large donations to the community center in the past. The activity room A, I believe, is the Cornwell. There's a large Cornwell donation for that. And there's been other citizens that have decided to donate to special interests related to arts, parks, and recreation, or arts in the uptown area.
So with that, citizens can take their special interest and contact the city and say, I'd like to help with a particular cause?
They could,
Okay.
absolutely.
And they should just send the check to you?
No. They cannot. We can receive it, but we would receive it through the auditor's office so that it is properly audited and accounted for. And then, as is tonight, talk about it at council because we would have to acknowledge receipt of that through city council.
Thank you, and thank you to the donors.
Excellent, very good question.
Don't send checks straight to me.
Any comments from the public on this donation? Okay, thank you. The last item on our appropriation agenda tonight is $3,000 to the Arts, Parks, and Recreation Income Tax Fund, professional services line for engineering and surveying for the Alco canoe put-in. The Alco is the Athens Lumber Company building. For those of us around when it moved from the location of the Athens Lumber Company a long time ago, it was known as the Little Red Schoolhouse, if you know it as the Little Red Schoolhouse. It is the small building at the bikeway crossing of Union Street. And there is a movement by the Arts, Parks, and Recreation Department to put in a canoe entry into the Hocking River below the Alco building. Are there any questions from the committee on this $3,000 for the canoe put-in? Other members of council? Administration, anything to add?
Just of note, back in 2007, we put in a takeout upstream of White's Mill for obvious safety reasons. And this is an opportunity for someone who was canoeing the length of the Hocking River to take out upstream of the dangerous river feature and then put in downstream of it by portaging around via the bike path.
Thank you. Any questions from, or comments from the public? Okay, thank you. That ends regular appropriations with our last item on the agenda tonight for finance and personnel, are decreasing, increasing appropriations. And this is decreasing our stormwater fund capital line by 400 and increasing the stormwater fund for vehicle maintenance by $400. So I believe, Service Safety Director, we are just getting the money in the proper line here?
Correct. So specifically, this is some money that we had placed in the wrong location in the budgeting process at the end of the year in the TC 500s, and instead this moves it from the TC 500s to the TC 300s. Very small shift.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee on this shift of the $400? Other members of council? Members of the public? Okay, thank you, President Nisley. That ends Finance and Personnel.
Great, thank you. We'll now move on to Committee of the Whole, and the first item is a solid waste contract. And what we'll be doing procedure-wise is council members Crowell and Swank have been working with city administration, our service safety director and deputy service safety director, Andy Stone and Andrew Chickey, and they have met to review the bids that were received, and they have been meeting for several months. The two council members will summarize what's happened and what they've done with that, with the bids. We'll see if there are any comments from Service Safety Director Stone before we open it up to comments and questions from other council members. And then we will also have time for comments from the public who's here attending tonight. I have one request. If you're intending to speak, if you could just sign that sign-in sheet for us so we have it documented. So, council members Swank and Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. As the President said, we have been working on this project for quite some time, and this is consistent with the efforts of this council to get an early start on things so that we're not rushing. Many of us last year when we ran for council ran on a promise to engage the public early in the process on many things as opposed to when the train had already left the station. And I think people in general appreciate that. I'll also go on to say I think most people realize that they're not going to get everything that they always want, but they at least want to be heard. To that end, not only did the four of us meet, but also the co-director, David Riggs, was part of this too. So there were 5 of us that started way back in the fall. The bids were due on December the 15th and were opened. We had 2 bidders. Rumpke and AHRC that submitted bids. Mr. Stone's office, with somebody's sharp pencil and a good calculator, was able to take what was about a 178-page document and boil it down to about 3 pages with a series of options. And there are 13 that we have this boiled down to. In essence, there are 4 with 3 varieties of each, or 3 variations of each, and then 1 which we're going to recommend that we don't consider tonight for legal reasons per the law director. We have met, at least 4 or 5 times as a group. Member Crowell and I have met twice now to hash this out to get us to the point of where we are today. A lot has gone into this. We think there are some good options in here. It's just a matter of what this council thinks is best after discussion and listening to the general public. Member Brown.
Thank you, Member Swank. As Member Swank described, we have had access to the full bid documents as well as the request for bids that the City of Athens put out for waste and recycling and composting service providers to bid on. So after taking a very close look, full reading of all of the documents submitted, I have a recommendation tonight for moving forward with this whole procedure. And there's a number of things here that I need to go through, so just bear with me, and we'll get to the end, I promise you. Let me first say that my first recommendation to council is that the bid from Rumpke be declared invalid. And my reasoning for that is because they took exception to a very important, I believe, portion of the contract. And I'll go ahead and be very careful to read for you and point out for all of council these portions. Part 5 of the contract, under general, has this paragraph about exceptions to contract terms and specifications. The respondent shall clearly identify any proposed deviations from the contract terms or specifications in the request for bid. Each exception must be clearly defined and referenced to the proper paragraph in this bid. The exception shall include, at a minimum, the respondent's proposed substitute language and opinion as to why the suggested substitution will provide equivalent or better service and performance. A little bit further on in the same part 5, it reads, failure to provide this information may result in rejection of the response. And then immediately following that, the city reserves the right to reject any bids not prepared and submitted according to the provisions herein outlined, and may reject any or all bids. Now, the specific document submitted by Rumpke is tab 12 on the council drive, exceptions to bid. And the contract documents that Rumpke does not agree to is in section D, and it refers to liquidated damages. And I'll just go ahead and read this so we're fully transparent. All of my comments tonight are based specifically on the wording in the documents submitted to council to consider for this contract. Contractor agrees that quality work is of the essence for this project and that it shall complete the work as specified in this contract. Failure to provide quality work will cause damages to the city, and in the event contractor does not provide quality services, the city may deduct from any amount due to the contractor the sum as follows. I'm not going to read each of these, but I'm going to point out sort of the main points here. $300 per occurrence for trucks not having a drain plug installed at all times while working within the city limits. This keeps the city streets cleaner and is a safety provision for not having that leachate leaking out of the trucks onto our city streets. B, $200 per occurrence for keeping area surrounding central sites free of litter and garbage. C, $600 per occurrence. Failure to collect scheduled solid waste or recyclables from the special franchise district. D, $600 per occurrence. Failure to collect scheduled solid waste or recyclables from a route. E, $1,000 per occurrence. Failure to perform in a professional manner. The contractor agrees that operating and performing in a professional and workmanship-like manner is of primary importance. Failure of the contractor or any of its employees to act in a professional manner, including rude or vulgar expressions, foul language, or other actions not of a professional nature, result in damage to the city. Now, these are liquidated damages. These were specifically included by the city administration in this contract as something of a stick, something of problems that have been seen in the city in the past, and a way to ensure that the service provider is taking very special note of these very specific items. Now, in this exceptions to bid, Rumpke included the following language. Rumpke notes its exception to this provision. While Rumpke prides itself of providing the highest levels of service in the industry, given the effects of the pandemic and workforce's issues, Rumpke is no longer agreeable to defined service penalties. We are confident that mutually agreeable language can be negotiated to resolve this issue. So as I get into the very specific bids themselves and talk about them, because I'm not at all done here with just recommending that this bid be declared not valid, there are many good things that Rumpke does, and I think that Rumpke's willingness to negotiate is fine. But I am required to evaluate these bids based on the documents that have been submitted and not on a promise of a future negotiation which hasn't happened. So I don't know what would happen in a future negotiation. Now, we can think about the pandemic, and we can think about workforce issues that have resulted from the last few years. And I understand some concerns there, acts of God, things that might happen that might delay a route. But Rumpke takes that very specific exception under another clause, which is that contractor must provide services during any work stoppage for any reason. Failure to provide these services is a justifiable termination of this agreement. And Rumpke has responded. Rumpke notes its exception to this provision on the grounds that it is overly broad. Rumpke makes every effort to perform according to the agreed upon schedules, but cannot determine a scheduled service will not be stopped intermittently due to a natural disaster or any other event that may impact its business. We are confident that mutually agreeable language can be negotiated to resolve this issue. And then the final exception is under the terms of this defined time period, under the terms of this contract, the City of Athens shall withhold from any monies payable on this assemblage contract to be formed by the contractor such sums as may be determined to be necessary to satisfy any liabilities for unpaid wages and/or liquidated damages due to non-completion of said contract. Rumpke's response. Rumpke notes its exception to this provision on the grounds that it is overly excessive. While Rumpke prides itself of providing the highest levels of service in the industry, Rumpke is no longer agreeable to defined service penalties and expect discussions regarding any disputes of unpaid wages can be resolved before withholding any monies due. We are confident that mutually agreeable language can be negotiated to resolve this issue. So my first introduction here tonight is that I don't believe that this is a valid bid for the City of Athens because of them saying that this portion of our contract they don't agree to. And I think this is a very important portion, especially that A, B, C, D, and E that I started off with. Now, I would like to make one other note about Rumpke's very specific response to this bid, which is that one of the items in the bid documents is to take care of the Uptown District, the franchise district, co-located waste and recycling containers, which are on Union and Court and Carpenter and Washington. They not only need to do a daily, the contract reads, contractor shall provide collections needed up to daily service of 26 downtown solid waste and recycling containers owned by the city in the Uptown District. One additional solid waste container on Schaefer Avenue and one additional solid waste container on Richland Avenue shall be included in this service. The exteriors of the Uptown District containers, as well as the interior tubs, shall be power washed once per month or as often as needed to maintain a clean and sanitary appearance. The city knows that we had previously what were called big belly containers in the downtown area that had a solar-powered compactor. It was determined that that compaction was not doing enough in those containers in order for them to be able to not be serviced every day. They had to be serviced every day anyway. We were paying $50,000 a year to the Big Belly Corporation to rent those on the streets of Athens, and we decided it was in our best interest to go to regular containers. We have these regular containers. They're working out very well, but we have had some complaints about smells of the interior bins, cleaning of the outside, etc. So this was included in the contract, that this is part of the contract. Rumpke did respond Under this section of the contract, Uptown District Solid Waste and Recycling Container Collection, Rumpke has written, within the same time frame as Rumpke is servicing the franchise area, Rumpke will also service trash and recycling receptacles in the Uptown District. And then the following, Rumpke can explore the costs and service options available for weekly container cleaning. So as I read this, they didn't include those costs in their bid. They want to explore that with the city after the contract has been granted. I also don't think that is, it may not make the bid invalid, as I think the exceptions to the liquidated damages does, but I think it's also significant. Okay, bear with me here. The language that the city used, two bidders for this contract, has some of the following language. This is under instructions to bidders, Part 1, general information. Method of award. Awards for goods and services will be made to the bidder, providing the lowest responsive and responsible detailed bid that effectively meets the city's operational and sustainability goals. In determining the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, the city shall consider the bidder's financial situation, comparable experience, conduct and performance on previous contracts, the bidder's facilities, staff, equipment, management skills, and ability to execute the contract properly. Now, just note that the contract called for effectively meeting the city's operational and sustainability goals. The bottom of this paragraph reads, the city reserves the right to reject any or all bids and is not bound to accept the lowest cost response if that response is not in the best interests of the city. Under specific history and current information, the city has written, the city is seeking to build upon existing solid waste and recycling collection systems in an effort to achieve all future waste-related diversion and minimization goals. And a little bit later on in this paragraph or this section, as the city desires to become a zero-waste community, a sustainability-focused waste management plan is integral to the overall success of the city's commitment to reducing solid waste and increasing waste diversion. We're getting there. So, outside of believing that one of the bids is invalid, I also believe that one of the bids is more in the best interest of the city than the other. And I believe that because I think both bidders have demonstrated that they can pick up trash, solid waste, landfilled waste, and can pick up recyclable materials, and perhaps both, I'm not sure exactly, can pick up organic waste, composting, have experience in that, and can put it in their trucks and can take it away from our curbs or away from our downtown district. But the city of Athens, Rumpke has done a lot of great things in the region in terms of recycling, opening up new, very technological recycling centers and doing a lot for recycling, which they started when they purchased a business in 1989. Many of you may be aware that curbside recycling in the city of Athens started in 1984. So while they are a very experienced company and they've been doing a lot of good things in terms of recycling, and they've been processing a lot of recycling for decades, the City of Athens has been doing it longer. And it's my contention that the City of Athens has an Environment and Sustainability Commission, it has a comprehensive plan, it has a Sustainability and Climate Action Plan, for the very reason that we are a community that values our operations in a way that the other communities in our region may not. That our sustainability goals are key parts of the way we do business and the way that we have contracts, and certainly the way we manage our waste stream and our recycling and our organics. So it is my belief, reading very carefully at these documents, that the AHRC bid goes into great detail about the City of Athens' sustainability goals. They have been a partner in the past on helping the city to reach sustainability goals. There is very little in the Rumpke bid documents that talks about helping the city to do better, helping the city to continue to strive to divert more materials from the landfill, to continue to strive to increase our recovery rate of recyclable materials. They can come and pick up our trash and recycling and take it to the landfill or take it to a recycling center. They are building a state-of-the-art recycling center in Columbus. The language in their document is not 100% clear, but does note that they will initially utilize Athens Hawking recycling centers for their recycling drop-off. But then, actually they say and/or their facility in Columbus, which they hope to open, I believe, in 2024. There's obviously, when you're transporting any materials in these trucks that don't get very good gas mileage, the carbon emissions related to the miles driven, how far our recyclable materials go is significant. It's something we should consider. It's something that we as a community discuss when we talk about sustainability, right? The capacity now and in the future to be able to, serve our society, to serve our environment, and to be in the best economic interests of the community. As we look at that triple bottom line framework, people, planet, and economic prosperity, and we weigh those, as sustainability is a decision-making framework. How do we look at all three of these impacts and decide where the best sort of decision is? The Rumpke bid is cheaper. This Rumpke bid is lower than this AHRC bid. But when you take into consideration the planet, our environment, and people, our society, and the impacts of not striving to do better with our diversion, I think that those two pieces outweigh that single economic piece. And also, I mean, the economic piece, if we don't do well to manage our waste, if we don't continue to improve in managing our waste, then there's going to be economic, there's an impact on health that can be quantified in dollars. To know what's going to happen in the future is very, very difficult. But I even think just looking at what is presented here today and the dollars and the impact on people, on society and the environment, the HRC bid is in the better interests of the city. There was an addendum that was added to the contract, which stipulated that the bidders consider their working with local organizations and consider the collaborative nature of what we would like to see in the city of Athens. Not just a waste provider who, again, comes at our curbs and disappears, but somebody who is very actively engaged with our community and or all kinds of organizations to improve our to reach our sustainability goals and improve our sustainability goals. The contract specifically talked about sort of three very important pieces: special halls, Halloween, and move out. Now, those of us who have been in the city for a long time, we know that move out is a very significant period of time in the city of Athens and creates very specific problems. I think that's a big sort of piece. Halloween is its own thing too. But there is where they need to mention move out in their documents. Rumpke says, yes, we'll provide a container truck. I believe there's one sentence that says, yes, we'll provide a truck, a Packer truck for move out. And we might have a staff member available. HRC, there's about a dozen or more references to move out throughout their bid documents. This is a business, this is a current partner in the city of Athens that is focused on that issue and then focused on working with community partners to solve some of those problems. Throughout their introduction, they talk about being committed to supporting local businesses. I'll read verbatim. HRC is committed to zero waste goals and considers solid waste management as resource management. We look at the components of waste as feedstocks that can be put back into our economy in a multitude of ways. There's no language like that in Rumpke's bid. They can handle our recycling. They have great facilities where they can take that recycling, but there's no proposal to help us reach our goals. There's no proposal to do better. HRC in their bid documents provides a chart of the diversion rate that they are able to achieve with the Athens Hocking Solid Waste District, going from about 8% in 2008 to 36% in 2018. And currently we're at about 28%. So if you look at that sort of over 20-year period, which has been with Athens Hocking Recycling Centers, they have helped us improve our diversion rate by 20%. The City of Athens Sustainability Plan has a goal of a decrease in our landfill solid waste by 20%. In the sustainability plan, there are agents of change for all of these goals, and the agent of change is the service provider. So this is something that Athens Hocking Recycling Centers has been actively working on. We have a goal of 95% of recyclables diversion by 2030. We have a 2030 composting goal of 80%. These are all pieces of the sustainability plan, goals of the City of Athens when it comes to solid waste management that AHRC has been working on and continued to discuss throughout this bid document submitted today about how they will be involved very specifically in those processes. We as I mentioned, desire to become a zero waste community. I'm going to go a little bit further into HRC's documents here. As we talked about sort of some of the concerns about our containers being serviced properly in the uptown area, AHRC, I'm reading again, quote, AHRC recognizes the importance of the appearance and cleanliness of the uptown franchise district area and is equipped to continue providing the extra service the city requires. All solid waste centralized locations will be maintained within 10 feet with overflow and litter cleaned up on an ongoing basis. Each collection truck is equipped with a shovel and a broom for proper cleanup. Deodorizer is kept on hand. It is especially needed during warmer weather to help curtail odors from dumpster containers across the city. AHRC will provide on-site supervision on a regular daily schedule for the purposes of determining placement of trash, cleanup of any spills created by the collection process, reporting to code office any nuisances or expected nuisances that have been created by someone other than AHRC. This goes on and on and on, very specifically. AHRC encourages communication between code enforcement, other city officials, and residents to alert us to any issues that develop due to collection so that we can resolve these in a timely manner.
And Councilmember Kraut, if we
Yes.
could, just so we can give everybody a chance
Okay.
tonight to speak, and I know Councilmember Swank wants to probably make some comments, and then we'll open up for additional
All right.
comments. Thank you.
They also state that AHRC is first and foremost a recycling facility with the goal of capturing as much valuable recyclable materials as possible. Again, pages on move out, Halloween, multi-unit housing, an initiative we've been trying to push to get more recycling containers at our large apartment complexes. Composting program, page and a half on the composting program. Rumpke did say that they could pick up our composting and that they would like to take it to HRC. I'll just end here, I guess, with a final sort of submission by HRC, which is titled "The Value of HRC." And in this, they talk about their carbon footprint. They talk about their carbon footprint in a number of locations throughout this document. They are thinking about climate change. They are thinking about greenhouse gas emissions and their responsibility for that. AHRC hopes that the City of Athens will continue on with the compost collection service to further meet its sustainability goals. Studies have found organic waste in landfills to be the third largest source of methane emissions. HRC has and will continue to provide education with the City of Athens. HRC will continue to partner with the City of Athens, Ohio University, Rural Action, Athens Hawking Solid Waste District, Keep America Beautiful, Recycling Partnership. Sustainability, the HRC supports sustainability, partners with the greater City of Athens community, City of Athens, SOPEC, Rural Action, studying the feasibility of an anaerobic digester, further illustrates our commitment to sustainability by reducing our carbon footprint, zero waste and sustainability goals in the City of Athens, partnering, zero waste productions, Rural Action, Coalfield Development, Goodwill, Restore, Athens Hawking Solid Waste District, AceNet, many others. Rumpke didn't provide this in their bid documents. Rumpke didn't identify local agencies that they are partnering with that they can help us to reach our sustainability goals with. I'll just make a final note on their documents, and this makes me also a little wary for the Rumpke bid. Which is that they, as I mentioned, they do some very significant things. They don't talk very specifically about Athens. We would be in what's called the Waverly District, which stretches from about Washington County down to Ashland, Kentucky, over close to Cincinnati. It's a fairly large area, maybe about 130 miles from one end to the other. And they supplied documents at the end of their bid that give a lot of information about their large operation. And they do some good things in terms of managing landfills. They do say that landfill, their title is landfills, they're what we do best. And they talk about things such as using compressed natural gas to run trucks, one of the things that was a red flag for me is that they call that green energy. Now, we've had in the state of Ohio, I think, I know, some discussions about what green energy is. And I believe even our governor has signed a bill declaring natural gas green energy. I disagree with that. I don't believe that natural gas is green energy. They do have some landfills where they're able to capture methane gas. I am all for that. I think that's fantastic. One of the biggest problems with greenhouse gas emissions are coming from our landfills with methane and production. There's nothing in their document saying that they are planning that for the Athens Hawking landfill, which is in Nelsonville, which they now own. The closest one that I could find was in Cincinnati. And I'm also a little bit of a red flag that they call that a renewable energy source, the methane released from landfills. I think it's great that it can be captured and used. Waste to energy is an excellent initiative. But in my mind, it's not a renewable energy source. It would be best if our landfills were not emitting methane. And that is one of the reasons why we have composting, one of the reasons why we want to keep organics out of landfills. So there's a number of things that I don't think we're speaking the same language as Rumpke. I don't think that they feel that green energy is what I feel green energy is. I don't think what they think renewable energy is what I think renewable energy is. And I'm not confident that the sustainability goals that we have as a city is something that they are going to help us reach. I've got more to say, but I will defer to
Thank you.
Member Swank.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So does the audience, too. But thank you for all the work on this. Councilmember Swank, I think you have some comments to make before we open it up for discussion then, too.
Yeah, I think Rihanna might be coming back to do a halftime show after that. Wow. Back when we first got the synopsis from Mr. Stone and Mr. Chicky, it was divided into three parts: bid irregularities, bid exceptions, alternative bids, and then some other things to consider. And in the bid irregularities, it talked about two things, two bullet points. AHRC submitted an incomplete bid for tab A and B. Rumpke failed to submit a solid waste disposal cost for all bids. And from that, we prepared, or the administration prepared, 4 sets of options. The first option was to award contract A and B to Rumpke as lowest and best bid. Second section, throw out Rumpke Part A, which we just heard about. Third section was throw out HRC Part A. And the fourth section, award contract A and B to AHRC. I mention that because one of the options presented to us was the opportunity to throw out one or both bids. And for those of you who've been around a while, you remember what we did several years ago, and it essentially, no pun intended, kicked the can down the road. I think throwing out either of these bids would be doing the same thing again, denying the fact that we're going to have to inevitably make a choice. We're inevitably going to have to make a choice. I am very, very much torn on this, and I will tell you why. For the majority of my working career, I was a sales rep for one of the 4 major yearbook companies in the United States. My responsibilities were 2: to work with schools to teach kids how to produce a yearbook, how to write copy, design pages, take pictures, sell advertising, hopefully meet deadlines to get those books back before graduation. The second part of my responsibilities was to sell new business. It was a sales job, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and did it for 34 years. But in working with some schools, I worked with schools for 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. I worked with advisors through their first marriage, through their first child, sadly through divorces, deaths of parents. I had an advisor collapse in my arms in the parking lot of a high school because that day when she went home at lunch to get her lunch, there was a note on the kitchen table that after 31 years her husband had left her. We built relationships. much like HRC has built with the city of Athens, good relationships. Brought this water on purpose because I knew we'd get to this point tonight. But as time went by, as it always did, a school might get a new principal or might get a new advisor. And that principal or advisor might say, you know what? I think we're going to bid the yearbook this year. 5 years, 10 years, in some cases 20-plus years of loyalty out the window because somebody offered a cheaper price. I'm torn. I am really torn. Do we look at the history of what AHRC has done, which I think most everyone in this room would agree has been positive and has served the city of Athens? Or do we look at a contract that potentially would cost the citizens of Athens over the next 4 years $1.7 million more? I'm torn. If I had to make a decision right now, I might say, President Isley, can we talk about this at another committee meeting in 2 weeks? And with that, I will simply close, and hopefully we can have a discussion about the 12 options that have been presented to us by this council that's gathered tonight.
Okay. I am going to offer, just to see before we start council member comments, to see if Service Safety Director Stone has any comments. Anything you want to add to the bidding process or review of that?
I don't have an opinion on the best way to proceed in this. We've presented the council, and this is a unique contract, in that the council has withheld the authority from the administration to make a decision, which is typical with every other contract we do. So at this point, we don't really have an opinion on this matter. Hopefully, we've presented all the information that you need to have a discussion on it, and if we haven't, I certainly can reach back and try to get more information.
Okay. With that, we'll open it up to first council member comments. Council member Spielness, yes.
Well, we knew this was going to be interesting, and I have to say that it's really exciting to hear Member Crowell be so enthusiastic and informed and actually passionate about this issue. I have to say that when I first heard about this and the cost issues, I thought, well, yeah, we really need to think about that. But let's talk more about the costs, and I think this is important. So, one of the things missing in the Rumpke bid was the tipping fees. They did not separate them out. Why did they do that? Why didn't they include that cost? Let me tell you, it's pretty interesting. Rumpke did not separate the collection and landfill cost because they own the landfill. How about that? So what does that mean? That means that basically that's all the costs involved kind of get diluted and separated from what's really happening. So I started looking into that a little bit and discovered this report. It's 2008, but it's still very applicable. And it's called Mergers, Monopolies, and Stealth Pricing in the Waste Industry, shortened to Trashing Consumers. So in reading that further, I'm going to quote this for you. It says, companies that control landfills are also able to control the collective market because they set the tipping fee for rates, the amount charged cities to dump trash in landfills. When they use their power to increase tipping fees, it allows them to underbid for collection contracts until other companies cannot compete and are driven out of the market. This vertical integration allows companies to implement price increases that would not have been possible otherwise. As a result, customers pay more for waste collection than they would have in a competitive market. Landfill control allows the largest companies to drive smaller companies out of the market. Again, and so what happens when there's no competition? Everybody knows what happens when there's no competition. The prices go up. Not to mention, another aspect to this I think is important, is that one of the things that they mention in here that these large companies do to increase their pricing is what they call stealth pricing. And included in that is to, and they specifically mention this, although there's others, they add the provision excusing the company from performing contracted work. In other words, all those exclusions in there, that's a way to manipulate pricing and conceivably add that to pricing controls for them that are not in our best interests. So when we talk about the best and lowest prices, it's not just for today, it's not just for the next 4 years. We have to think of this as a long-term strategy. This is a strategy that's been used by companies trying to gain a monopoly so that they run the competitors out of business so they have control and then the prices go up. So what happens in 4 years if there's not a competitor? I can't guarantee that's going to happen, but what if it does? I don't see this as an advantage to our city. Also, in looking at recent news, the town of Hanover was just faced with increased pricing from Rumpke, and I'd like to ask, though I haven't had a chance, what happened? You know, what's going on? So I'm just concerned that it's not just about sustainability, although I personally agree, very much with that issue, but also, are we really getting a better deal long-term? I'm not so sure. And I think those are reasonable questions to ask. What guarantees do we have in the contract that Rumpke's offering that would prevent increases in prices? And also, what does it do to any bid that we accept? What happens with the landfill costs? I'm really concerned about that. That's done.
Thank you. Comments from other council members? Councilmember Ziff.
Thank you, President Isley. And thank you to the other fellow council members for voicing very well thought out and well-spoken opinions. I just wanted to throw one little statistic out there that means something to me. And it's if I go to the AHRC website and I go to look to see what their employment opportunities are, I can go on there and I can see what the starting pay is. And the starting pay for someone picking up refuse, $16.50 an hour. It's pretty good. That's better than a lot of places. Rumpke's not posted on their website. According to a little bit of Googling with Indeed, Glassdoor, Salary.com, ranges somewhere between 10 and 14. I don't think I really need to say anything else. I mean, I think that kind of speaks for itself. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Service Safety
I do have a
Director
point
Stein.
on that. I can't speak to Rumpke as a entire company, but we did put a requirement in this set of bidding that whoever is selected, workers within the city of Athens must be paid a minimum of $15 an hour if they're working within the city of Athens. So again, I can't speak to workers outside of the city of Athens, but that is a requirement of bidders in this. And there would have to be a certified payroll submission, similar to what we do with prevailing wage. I know that was a major issue the last time, so I want to make sure that you were aware of that.
Thank you.
Could I just respond to that briefly?
Good. Yes.
Thank you for that. That's
Councilmember
really
Ziff.
good to know. And also, I should thank the administration for the huge amount of effort that's gone into this. Y'all have done a great job. But just as a brief response, I like 1650. So.
Okay. Other council members? Council members, well,
I was waiting for people to.
yeah, is there anybody else who'd like to respond? Okay, and Councilmember Swank, and then we'll move on if no other responses to the audience members then.
Yeah, a couple things here. Member Smith on this. In actuality, if you look at the raw numbers, AHRC is only 6.9% higher for trash than Rumpke. Yet you claim Rumpke controls the pricing because they control the dump. Is that correct?
Yes?
If you look at recycling, HRC is 32.6% higher than Rumpke. yet HRC controls the thing. So I really don't think those figures shed much light on the value of this. As to the wages, Glassdoor, Indeed, it's kind of like Travelocity and TripAdvisor. You get both ends. So before saying that they're only paying $10 to $14, I think a call to them might be in order. To that end, though, a brand new employee at Rumpke, how many weeks vacation do they get? Anybody know? 3. How about the maternity and paternity leave policy? Matches Fortune 500 companies. 401k? They've got it. Am I advocating for Rumpke? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I think we need to take a much deeper dive into this. And by that, I mean, I think we really need to look at some numbers and the impact this will have on the citizens of Athens. Ryan, can I share my screen, please? This is the first proposal, and the first proposal is to award contract A and B to Rumpke at the lowest and best bid. The majority of accounts in Athens right now are in the two-can category. As you can see, this would yield a $1.11 increase in trash pickup. For the franchise district, which is the uptown area and all this, a 5% increase. If we were to go to option 2, this would include standardized cans. Now, Sam and I had a very good discussion on this, and I think we came to the conclusion that we really don't need to replace our existing recycling cans. There are enough of them that are still good that it doesn't warrant the additional cost. So I would recommend, if we're getting rid of some of these options, we get rid of number 2, 4, 6, and 8 because they're identical. They include standardized cans for trash and recycling. But when we get down to number 3, we're looking at $1.59 per month increase in cost if we were to award the bid to Rumpke. In a 4-year period, that works out to $76.32. $76.32. And the uptown folks, they get a 10% increase. If we do what Member Crowell suggests and begin to throw out bids, we move to option number 4. Option number 4 would be awarding Part A to Rumpke, or to AHRC and the franchise district to Rumpke. The uptown franchise people would be very happy with this. They would see a 0% increase. But the average householder would see $3.82 increase. But if we jump down to what I prefer, option 4A, simply because it includes a standardized can, the additional cost over a 4-year period would be $338.40. The average account in Athens over a 4-year period would see a $338.40 increase in their bill. Now, let's go back a year. A year ago, and Ben asked me about this, where are your visual aids today? I brought in cans, big cans, little cans in a bag. And what we found at that time is if you had one can and you owned your home, you paid $15. If you had one can and you rented, you paid $22. And people said, where is the equity in that? And this council agreed, and today, if you put out one can, whether you own or rent, you pay the same amount of money. Option 4A, by going to standardized cans, if you put out a 35-gallon can, you would pay the 1 can rate. If you put out a 65-gallon can, you would pay the 2 can rate. Doesn't it make sense that you pay for what you put out? The more you trash, the more you pay. But let's look at sustainability. let's look at sustainability. If I can get my trash that I'm currently putting in a 65-gallon can into a 35-gallon can, I'm gonna do it. If for no other reason than to save the money. But there's actual evidence of this, where this has worked. The University of Iowa instituted a plan where in all of their offices, they put an oversized recycling can and a very, very small trash can. Their diversion rate went from 26% to 66%. And I think the same thing would happen here. Whether we choose Rumpke or HRC, a standardized trash can in your choice of sizes. Colors, we may do what Mansfield did, make them bright pink and try to tie it into breast cancer awareness. That is true. They've done that in Richland County. Option 5 and 6 get real expensive. And the reason they get real expensive is we're throwing out the AHRC bid, using part of the bid for Rumpke, and you can see the increases: 47%, 49%, 46%, and 49%. And then we get to the last set of options. And the one I'm most interested in is the last one. If we award the contract to AHRC, I'll say that again. If we award the contract to AHRC, which if we throw out the Rumpke bid, we would be doing, the average homeowner will pay $328.32 more over the 4-year period, which represents a 37% increase for the homeowner and a 37% increase for CASA. Is there a middle ground? Is there a way to award one contract to Rumpke, whether it be residential or uptown, and the other to AHRC? And what would the cost of that be? That recognizes the loyalty factor and the good job that the company has done over the last 8 to 10 years. And it's also a lot less than $1.7 million difference. Is there a way that we can split it? According to the administration, if council so deems that the appropriate path to take, because of the way we bid this, we legally can do that. So I throw that out to council as something we've not talked about yet. Because eventually, this council is going to have to come to some kind of consensus as to make a recommendation on an ordinance to vote on. That doesn't mean we're all going to vote for it or against it, but we have to have some idea what that ordinance is going to look like. And normally, that would be next week. I don't think we're there yet.
And just as a side note, correct, if everything was smooth, we would be there next week.
Yes.
We have the option
That's what I said
of
normally,
continuing
yeah.
the conversation. So that's our point in getting comments tonight and also time to get additional information. Councilmember Spielness, and then we'll try and move on after this to
Thank you.
comments from the audience.
I'm concerned that would these companies be interested in splitting? And how would that work? I mean, I just don't know that they would, that it would be in their best financial interest to take one or the other. I mean, what if AHRC gets just the part of it? Can they survive with that? I mean, is that something they want to do? Do we know that they'd be interested in something like that?
Yes, Service Safety Director Stone.
Sure, thank you, President Isley. So to answer the question, the various options show options of splitting and having the franchise district go to one hauler and the residential go to the other hauler. Because we specifically bid this as an A or a B or an A plus B. So each bidder submitted a bid that was if they were to only be awarded A, or if they were to only be awarded B, or if they were to be awarded A and B. And so that was the way that we did that intentionally so that those options would be available.
Thank you. All right, and I now think that we will move on to members in the audience. If you would like to speak, you can come up to the podium. You need to announce your name, your address, and whether or not you're representing a group. So whoever'd like to go first. 3 minutes, I will set the timer.
Great. Just jumped right up there.
Thank you,
How about it?
Melinda.
So I'm going to try to really keep this to 3 minutes. I've learned a lot tonight. My
Melinda.
name is Melina Miller, and I'm not only a longtime resident here on the Far East Side, where I pay $14 a month for my trash pickup by AHRC. I love my trash men, I must tell you. I've seen them pick up trash from my 103-year-old friend on Mulligan Avenue when these workers will go up to her garage, pull the stuff because she can't take it to the street and put it back. I can attest that Rumpke will not do that. I have just finished working for 2 months in the country where there wasn't Rumpke, was the trash hauler. They did no recycling there. I looked up and down. I'm also working with Rural Action as a consultant. Ed Newman, my partner, and I spent an hour at Poston this morning. I can tell you, I'm out there an awful lot because we have a container out there. We recycle, well, he's a zero waste coordinator at Rural Action, so we recycle everything known to mankind. My purpose in being hired by Rural Action was because of my expertise in the medical field. So we have saved, over the last 4 years, thousands and thousands of pounds of medical supplies and equipment. Tomorrow, Ed's going to go and pick up 8 beds from Belpre Landing, medical beds that would normally go where? Where?
Landfill.
They'd go to the landfill. Make no mistake about this. We've been doing these collection events at the fairgrounds. We recycle mattresses in Box Springs. We recycle hard-to-recycle materials, which I can assure you has been because of a cooperative adventure on our part at Rural Action and many other entities working with us with Athens Hawking Recycling. Does it make sense to start putting this stuff? I mean, we're shipping. I just finished helping fill a second container since January to the Ukraine. Our part of that, just for medical supplies and equipment. Now, mind you, most of this stuff has never been used before. And it won't be used. It's still brand new, going to go to the landfill. Across this nation, that's what happens. That is what happens. So when you look at these contracts, please don't look at this narrow little tunnel view of what happened in the past. Look to the future of what this is going to look like for the rest of our world here in Athens and going forward. I'm just talking about medical supplies. There's so much more than that, and I can't go on because I probably already used up my time. But I'm for saving AHRC.
Okay. Other people who want to make comments? You can give us your name and address, and if you represent a group.
Okay, I'm representing myself. My name's Lucille Popa. Yeah, this is.
Please.
Your address?
Oh, I live at 38 First Street on the west side, where they put in those big new electric poles right in the middle of the sidewalk. Really weird. Really weird. I visited Rumpke Dump once upon a time. Actually, I've been there twice, and you know, I don't get that they're trying to do anything about education in terms of sustainability. It's just like, if we're not moving forward, caring about each other and what goes on in the trash, we're not really moving forward at all. And you know, there's supply chain issues. I think it's all on the fucking ground. It's where you put it. It's where you put it. And it's not a shame-based thing. Quote unquote zero waste is a harsh term, but it's really just about doing your best, and that's the future of a better world. I don't think we need any more plastic because it's killing us anyway. Yeah. Ooh. Quality is better than quantity, and love is greater than money. Thank you.
Thank you. Others who'd like to speak? Yes.
My name is David Scudner. I've been in Athens since 1979 with my wife, Delisa Bernier. I live on the Far East Side, and I'm a neighbor of Melena's. And I'm here tonight to urge council to support the AHRC. It seems to me, and Council Member Crow outlined many of the reasons that I was going to use myself, and he outlined them, in fact, articulated them way better than I could, but I'm going to just state a few of them over for emphasis. The AHRC bid, without a doubt, better addresses the requirements of the RFP. That should matter, and I think Councilmember Crow points that out very, very well. I also think that, I know, because I'm a member of the Board of Rural Action, that AHRC is a superior partner. We need partners. This can't just be a contractual transactional experience. AHRC delivers over and above that for rural action. It delivers over and above that for Ohio University as well. I also think if we just got into the ethos, and I think Sam put this beautifully, the ethos of AHRC and the values it stands for and practices are the same values that have been alive and well in Athens for some time. Those values genuinely matter, and they inform their business practice as well. If you look at the Rumpke description, it's 3 paragraphs. There's not a single word of sustainability there. They don't mention the word. They say something about protecting your planet. I'm not trying to be harsh about them. That's their business. We have a different conception of business in Athens, and it's one of the reasons why I think we're so proud to live here. I also think, just to, and this is something I only thought of in response to Councilmember Swank. Councilmember Swank, is it $328 additional over 4 years?
Yes, sir.
You know what that breaks down to a week?
Depends what your net income is.
Well, it's not very much money. And in my experience, if you ask the American people about taxes, they're happy to have increased taxes if it means that they get better services and services of the sort that are quality service and community-based. I would guess that most men and women in Athens, the folks I knew at OU, the folks I know in my community neighborhood, the folks I play ball with and everything else would certainly support that. They would support that small tax increase. So to me, this is an important decision. I don't like the idea of splitting. I like the idea of proceeding with the bid process, and I think AHRC has everything to recommend it, and I hope you agree with me and Melena.
Thanks. Yes.
I'm Hailey Voss. I live at 6525 Baker Road, and I'm the president of the Sugar Bush Foundation at Ohio University. And I just want to describe the Athens Hocking Recycling Center in the larger ecosystem that it functions in. We have an amazing collaborative environment in this community. I haven't seen that in another community the way it is here, where players work together or cooperate together towards sustainability goals, and organizations that are working to divert waste out of the waste stream. You mentioned so many of them, but others include Habitat for Humanity and Oblenus Hospital with their sustainability plan. Within Ohio University, the Office of Sustainability and the Campus Recycling, even the Athens Fair Board are very involved in dealing with move out. The Athens Hocking Recycling Center is a key player in this ecosystem. And the Athens Hocking Recycling Center was built or developed or homegrown by us, for this community to respond to the unique challenges and opportunities that we have in this community. That's why it's so special, and why it's so responsive to us, because we grew it to be that way. And I just want to say, it's a part of our community. It is an expression of who we are. And I think its role in Move Out, I think Move Out is probably about as unique of a thing that we have in Athens. A unique situation is how much volume of household goods and furniture and everything else comes out in one weekend time, and they're uniquely situated to help with that. along with many other partners. Thank you very much.
I'm really nervous. I'm Grace Corbin and I live at 5 Slaughter Drive on the west side. And I'm also all for keeping AHRC, even with the increased cost. I just want to speak a little bit about their customer service. I work at Casa Nueva, but I'm not officially representing Casa Nueva right now, but we are all of us worker owners are discussing this at length all the time in meetings. Shouldn't be a surprise. But I probably have to call AHRC either for my residents or for Casa Nueva or from Bagel Street Deli, where I also work, to ask questions about, is something recyclable? How can I do this? What can I tell my 20-year-old coworkers who think that it all goes to the dump anyways? And Bruce is awesome and will always return my phone calls and emails and sends me infographics to share with my coworkers who think that recycling's fake. They still do, but I can't really do much about it if I'm showing them infographics and telling them what I know. But yeah, their customer service is excellent. Ben, the compost guy who comes to pick up our compost, is really awesome and was excited to show me videos of the new shredder that they got, and it's awesome and scary. I just find them to be very approachable and transparent with their operations. And I am personally willing to pay a little extra if it means we get to keep them.
Hi, I'm Amy Delac. I live on Morris Avenue. I am signed in. I am the chair of the Athens Environment and Sustainability Commission, and so I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Councilmember Crowell, who is the council's representative on that commission, for giving us such a detailed breakdown of the sustainability efforts that Athens Hocking has gone through and their relationship to the city meeting its 2030 sustainability goals, which I personally believe is extremely important. And I do, from what I have looked at both bids, it certainly seems like Athens Hocking has a much better handle on that, a much better culture of supporting the city's understanding and supporting and helping us advance our sustainability goals. I am definitely conscious of the cost difference, not so much on my own behalf, but on behalf of other people within the community. However, I would really like to see more people going to that 1 can rate. I think that a lot of people, if they engage in more diversion, could actually recycle a lot more materials and, perhaps use that 1 can rate. I can speak for my own family. Even at the height of COVID, when we had 4 adult-sized people in our house, we filled a 1 can about every other week. We fill it maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks now. So I think it's very, very doable for many of the households within the community, and that might be a way to both save cost, increase our diversion, and help meet our goals faster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Debbie Phillips. I'm the CEO of Rural Action. Madam President, members of council. We at Rural Action work for sustainable economic development in a sector-based approach, and we do that work in partnership with our local communities and other organizations in the region. That's the only way to really get things done if we're going to diversify the economy and do things in a way that are going to help increase wealth and build programs that last. The City of Athens has been a great partner and has long been a leader in sustainability, both in terms of goals and action. We see the commitment taking shape in a lot of different ways, like the electric bus and the solar fee and the first curbside recycling program in the state of Ohio, I think, right? I remember those trucks that drove around with the bins on them and people sorting stuff right there at the curbside. Reducing waste that's going to the landfill is really important for a bunch of reasons. One, the collaborations that exist here help get useful materials to people who need them, who may not be able to afford them. So there's tremendous value in that, including the work that Milena is doing, but also working with a lot of people who may have disruptions in their lives to be able to access basic household goods and clothing and things that end up going through thrift stores and into upcycling and all kinds of diversion channels before the last resort of things going to the landfill. And it's really important in terms of our response to climate change. Reducing methane emissions from landfills is important. It's why there's been so much focus on building an organics program. It's why the partnership that we've had with HRC, where we actually wrote the grant, that awesome compost shredder is ours, but it lives at AHRC, and at the end of the period of performance for that grant, we hope that that will remain there, and it helps those compostable serviceware items actually be composted because they need to be shredded for that to work. So these kind of partnerships of identifying the infrastructure that we need so that we can figure out how to build the infrastructure and create opportunity, this is the creativity and the ingenuity and just the ability to get things done that's so powerful in our region and in our community. And we believe in that larger infrastructure and in working together to keep those assets available and figure out how we get people employed, how we get people making things and finding value in things that otherwise previously haven't been seen to have value. So we just appreciate the partnership. We appreciate the forward thinking. I love that there's a reference to looking at a biodigester, because if we want to get organics out of landfills and do our best to reduce emissions, we're going to have to figure that one out. And maybe the math is different because the rules are different and it's more expensive to landfill that material than it was in the past. So we look forward to doing everything we can to continue to partner with the city and with AHRC and with Sugarbush to move these solutions forward. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Ehlers. I'm the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity of Southeast Ohio. I also live at 51 Ward Road here in the city. I'm going to speak on behalf of myself, but also in my capacity as the Executive Director of Habitat. We work with AHRC in a multitude of ways. Move Out is obviously the huge one that we do, but we also do out with recycling through the Restore and also in our construction when we build houses and unfortunately sometimes have to tear houses down. We have always found them to be collaborative, always found them to be attentive, always found them to be responsive to everything that we needed to have done. And I could tell you, the working in the 8-county region that we serve, that is not the same everywhere else. Rumpke included. We have had several issues with several waste haulers who are not as attentive to the needs of the community and the work that we're doing, and also what other nonprofits are doing in the communities. Personally, as an Athens resident, I'll say the same thing about my trash haulers. My wife bakes cookies every single Christmas for our trash guys because we get to know them, we enjoy working with them, and if I have a problem, I know who to call, and I know how to get a hold of them. Same cannot be said when you're dealing with a larger organization that's not necessarily as locally vested. You've heard a lot about collaboration, so I'm not going to really go into too much on that, but to say that the waste diversion ecosystem here is unique and is the envy of several communities in Southeast Ohio that wish they had the types of collaborations that we have here. I talk to other municipalities that feel that way, and I'd hate for that to be put at risk. I'd also hate for that to be something that is potentially going to not continue to grow, all in the effort to save a couple of dollars. So, we know that AHRC cares about our community. We know that we're excited to continue to work with them in every capacity, and I hope that you'll consider and supporting AHRC's efforts in awarding them the contract.
Thank you.
Hi y'all, my name is Shane. I live on North Lancaster. I just moved up here in August of 2021, so I don't know what neighborhood I live in, but I know what community I live in. And when I moved here, I was blown away by the services that y'all offer, that we have, I guess, in our community. The things that AHRC provides, curbside composting, never even heard of it. but it's phenomenal. Food waste in landfills creates more greenhouse gas than the airline industry in this country. So where that food goes matters, and they are handling it right, and so I definitely support that. When I go back home or I have friends visit, I tell them, like, check this out. We have curbside composting. Our recycling, we take 1s through 7s. The city of like 500,000 I come from, 1s and 2s only. So just the variety of things you can get. I volunteered last year during Move Out to help manage some waste. We diverted like 900 rugs, not to count all the other like barns and fairgrounds full of stuff that we kept out of the landfill. And I know that money matters because we have budgets. Like, I live on poverty level wages right now, and I will gladly pay more to get better services because it matters for the future and what this community is committed to sustainability. And when I have friends come, I tell them because I'm proud of it. Like, you guys are miles ahead of like people that are way bigger than y'all. And I think we can keep being an example and a leader in this community. And staying with AHRC is one of the ways to do it. I want to thank you all for your time and letting me be heard.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment tonight?
Good day, Ed Newman, Courier Street. I also work with Rural Action. You know, one of the things I spend a lot of time doing is I'm using our positive model that we've created, we as a community have created over the years, starting with Recycling Center in the mid-'80s, when they were buffering us from industry consolidation back then, when they took bought our landfill and big haulers coming in. And so we're taking our good model and we're working with Ross County, Lawrence, and Scioto County, Morgan, Washington, Perry County, and I sure hate to lose what we've built up and gained and are making good progress on because of a little bit less money for a short term before a monopoly situation happens here and we're done. You know, and ask a lot of communities where Rumpke has had a monopoly situation and doubled their price, and they'll quit recycling. So we have a lot to lose here. Mostly what I'm trying to add things that haven't already been said. I'm going to just throw little anecdotes. I've seen these guys running on their routes nobody's telling them to do that. I mean, why do they do that? They're into it. These guys. A trash hauler and recycler that's into their job. How about that? I got too many notes here. I can't see what I'm looking at. So one other thing I guess I'll put out there is, we sponsor these hard to recycle materials days in 8 or so counties. Huntington's going to follow that lead in West Virginia, in our 2-county district, Athens Hocking has sponsored our efforts to give us really inexpensive disposal facilities and even add labor to it. When I'm in these other areas, and pretty much the only place that outfitted to contract trash services is Rumpke, I'm paying $400 for a roll off. So I mean, there's multiple things that I could tell you, where there's advantages to one company over the other. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Zach Rises. I live at 122 Central Avenue, a house that I recently purchased in this city, as everybody here is aware. I wanted to speak to 2 aspects of this conversation. The first is quality of service and customer service specifically. Councilmember Swank, you referenced, being in sales. And, if there was something I've learned from sales, it's that folks don't always choose the lowest option. And one of the top reasons why you choose an option that's a little bit more expensive is customer service. Everybody here who's spoken tonight has referenced customer service as one of their favorite parts of knowing and working with AHRC. I think that's a really important factor for consideration as to why council would choose not just the lowest, but the best bid. The other aspect that I wanted to speak to is the City of Athens Comprehensive Plan and Sustainability Action Plan. These are council-adopted documents, both of which the Sustainability Action Plan clearly is about sustainability, but the comprehensive plan also speaks to sustainability as a goal for the City of Athens. The fact that council signed on to that and has owned it as the city's priority is the reason why I would read that plan and think, oh, we can have an option in front of us that is evidently in line with that city plan and decision and action that we would like to take. And we have an option that may or may not be in line with that. We're left with a lot of questions. Councilmember Swank, to your very astute point, I don't think you necessarily have to throw out a bid if council chooses not to. I think there's lots of room for healthy debate here, but it seems evident to me that there is a very strong option that is in line with the city's priorities and the priorities and clear favoritism of many city residents. And then one final point I'd like to make that's not among those 2 points is I'd really like to speak in favor of council choosing a bid that extends composting citywide and has composting for everybody. I remember this debate from years ago during the previous round of bidding. And there was a debate at the time, should it be opt-in, should it be opt-out, should composting be something that is a service that's offered to all? My answer at the time remains what my answer is now, that composting for environmental and social and political reasons should be a service offered to all. And the most economical way to do that is to divide that price among everybody. In a city that is 70% rental units, many of those folks don't have a backyard that they can compost in. Many of those folks have landlords who won't allow them to compost in a compost pile. The most effective way to deliver compost in an urban area like the city center is to have a pickup at your doorstep. I'm a huge fan of curbside composting. I think it's one of the most important things the city does, and I really want that to weigh into your decisions as you make them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to make any comments tonight?
I'll wait. Good evening. My name's Debbie Chonko, and I live in the Plains, but I am also a customer of Athens Hockey Recycling. I also am here as their staff rep. I represent their contract. I heard you, Mr. Swank, mention some things about their contract, the 401k, and you mentioned different aspects of it. Well, Rumpke started out 40 years before they did in picking up trash. They bought up 200 companies in the 80s. So therefore, they're a much larger corporation and can offer different benefits. Why did you have to put $15 in there? Was it because you knew Rumpke didn't pay $15? Where out here, we're paying 16 plus. Bruce has always been good about his employees and wanting what's best for them. I can go to him with any issues they have, and I've always been able to do that. He has his employees' interest at heart. And those are members of our community. They are members of our community. They work here, they buy here, they shop here, they do everything here. For every job, we just found this out in a meeting, for every job that's lost in your community, it affects 7 other jobs. So if your people are making 15 bucks, I gotta think that's gonna make a little bit of difference too, than 16 something. I mean, you're not gonna be able to spend as much or do as much. Bruce has been really good about helping his employees become members of our community. He set standards for them to live up to, and so far most of them have lived up to it. And that's important. Those are the kind of people we want in our community, hard workers who are spending their money here. And I would ask that you think about that. In 40 years from now, maybe we'll have a 401k. Maybe we'll be able to offer those weeks of vacation that you think we should offer. But right now, we're doing the best we can do with what we have. And that's all you can ask of anybody. So give us a break and think about that when you're taking into consideration what you're doing. Think about the people, your neighbors, your friends who are here. And Mr. Crow, I'd like to thank you. I found what you had to say very interesting, and I know you did a lot of in-depth time and study to get to where you were. So I'd just like to thank you all for your time and ask you to consider everything, not just the money. One other thing. I did hear that they left things out of their bid. They didn't bid on certain things because it wasn't what they wanted to. So when you want those things, and they're going to quote you a price, they're willing to do that, then how much of that 1.7 is going to, how much of that's ate up? I mean, you have to have certain things. They didn't want to bid on it. They wanted to work with you. So when you get to really the final, is it really 1.7? I don't know. I think when they negotiate with you, you'll find out it's not that much. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mary Abel, 48 Strathmore Boulevard. I've been sitting back there listening to discussion, and one of the things that it brought to mind was a few years ago, I attended 99% of the committee meetings on the Housing Committee as Councilmember Grace chaired that. We heard from a lot of people, young professionals in the community, senior citizens, who really were having a very difficult time financially finding affordable housing in this city and other costs. And as we talk about the trash issue, I appreciate and understand all the sustainability aspects of this as well. But I would also ask you to remember that there is a pocketbook issue here for many people who are not at a strong economic level. 23.1% of the people who live in Athens City, and that excludes students, are below the poverty level. And so while maybe a few dollars doesn't mean so much for somebody who can go out and buy a cup of Starbucks, for a senior citizen who is living on a fixed income, who is having some difficulty with increased costs in grocery, medical bills, and et cetera, that can be and add up to a major cost. And I realize that in your discussion, it's about not quite $2 million difference between the contracts here. But I just hope that as you look at the issues here and you think about that, think about all the factors, not just the whole aspects of the sustainability and what we do in this community, but also a responsibility of elected leadership to also look at all aspects of people of every economic income level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Elaine Getz, 106 Maple Drive, Athens. And that's the perfect segue into what I wanted to say, which is that cost-benefit analyses are really important when you're looking at making a decision like this, but it actually is really important that you look at all aspects of the cost-benefit analysis. It's really easy to look at, and I know you guys all know this, but it's really easy to look at first costs and just say, boy, this one's cheaper and this one's more expensive. But there's so much more to it than that. There are all kinds of externalities that actually affect people, especially people that are economically disadvantaged. If we keep our pricing really low, we encourage extra trash creation. Eventually that might lead to where we need to site a new landfill. Who will pay for that? We know that costs like that are disproportionately borne by those who are economically disadvantaged. We know that oftentimes the benefits that we get as a community from organizations like AHRC are spread out particularly to those who are economically disadvantaged. And so instead of just taking a simple cost number, and this is something I oftentimes say in my classes, when I learned about cost-benefit analyses when I was a young student many, many years ago, it was always just you look at your capital costs and your operating costs and your maintenance costs, and then you calculate your net present value, and then you say, there's your answer, okay, whichever one's the cheaper one you take. But life isn't really that simple. And if you look at it just based on the simple costs, you're really missing a lot. You're not doing a sophisticated enough analyses. So while it's really important, I mean, critically important to think about costs for those who can't afford it, we actually need to make sure we're calculating those costs correctly. You know, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but like you pointed out, I mean, you can't just look at the cost they gave you and say that is actually the cost that will be borne by the community. It's very likely that that cost will be increased 4 years from now, and then people who can't afford it now, 4 years from now, they might be really out of luck. So I just want you to really do a more sophisticated cost-benefit analysis instead of just looking at lowest cost and saying, okay, there's the cost, that's cheaper, that's what we're going to take. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment or speak?
Chris, I'd just like to make one short comment. Before, I'm a member of the Athens Rethink Plastics group, some of you may have heard of. And a couple of years ago, in the midst of the pandemic, I was going up and down East State Street, you know, which has just grown and grown and grown. I mean, when I came here in 1963, there was an airport out there. We didn't have all those big box stores. And I have watched them go one after the other being built. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this on behalf of everybody in the council. I'm going to survey the businesses up and down, because there's a very prominent restaurant that I surveyed. I spoke to the manager, and the owners of that restaurant, because they have two different contracts, Rumpke picks up their trash, but does not pick up the recyclables. There's a little twist in this about knowing you have so many days to re-sign your contract, or the contract just goes on, and this kind of thing. And the owners of this restaurant for years have been taking home all their recyclables from all their customers at the restaurant to their home to recycle. I mean, this is insane. I'm going to check this out. I just want you to know that.
Thank you. Yes, and then we're going to close the comments for the night. So one minute.
Maybe 30 seconds. I just feel like doing what's right isn't always on paper as like, well, this one's more expensive or this one's not. Sometimes you just got to do what's right. And I live in Athens because there is love here, and there is love in Columbus in pockets, but those cities aren't tangible anymore. What Athens is a magnifying glass for what other bigger cities are eventually going to adopt, because we all want to live in a healthy, great air quality world. And yeah, I just think it's possible to do what's right, because that's what the people want. It's like working together is where it's at. That's all.
Thank you. We appreciate the comments tonight, and we will likely be bringing this back to committee, and we'll see if we'll be ready to bring it back to committee in 2 weeks' time, and then move forward with ordinances from that. I think there's some need for deliberation amongst the council members. Reasonable to assume. Unless I'm hearing otherwise, that people are ready to move forward next week. Yeah, I think we need a little bit more discussion, a little bit more, maybe some additional questions answered. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody taking the time tonight to offer the comments and your insights and your opinions, and also facts about things, about how things operate in the city. This is helpful for us to get a number of, to get input from everybody. So thank you so much. Now, we have two more committees. So I'm offering a 30-second option. If you would like to leave, you may do so. If you'd like to stay and hear our scintillating discussion of the next topics, you're welcome. We have a few loyal fans here who always stay to the end.
People stay through the credits.
Save that post-credit scene.
Now they won't know we're going to get rid of a great floor. Yeah. That's really interesting. Come back.
Yes?
unless it's the 5th Monday.
Tuesday of next week, is that right? No, it is Monday. It is Monday. It is Monday. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Look, I know how to contact.
All right, our other item for Committee of the Whole, thank you, Scott, for closing the door, is the new national opioid settlement. And on the council members' disk drive was an earlier ordinance that was adopted by the council for, that was 15621, and that was for the city to authorize us to take part in an Ohio settlement with Janssen, Johnson & Johnson on the opioid. We have now received a new national opioid settlement for, I may be pronouncing this wrong, Teva, Allergan, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. And we must opt in to participate. So we're going to go through the same kind of process. The mayor is the authorized signer on this. We do have a deadline of April 18th. So we will be moving paperwork forward to opt in to participate in this. So we will be seeing an ordinance in a few weeks. And there will be, I'm sure, I know there are some regulations on how we must spend the money and to participate in the program. Yes. Yes, Mayor Patterson.
President Haley, you're correct, that there will be guidelines, much like there is for One Ohio, where we've already begun to see the distribution of that. I believe the city is in receipt each year of a little bit more than $6,000. What I am trying to do, so I want council to understand this with One Ohio, and we can likely do the same if successful with this effort, is to partner with other municipalities throughout Athens County that are also in receipt of this funding to support potential programs like creating a workforce recovery program and training people to help maintain things like, say, the Bailey Trail System, which 88 miles of mountain bike trail is huge and really will need. And as I see this, if council is so willing, and if we're successful, to continue down that path with potential disbursements through this effort with the people who are selling or had been selling the opiates.
Okay, thank you. If no other comments, we'll look to the legislation once we get that prepared, and that'll come forward. Next, we've got the City and Safety Services Committee, and that's chaired by Council Member McCary. And since we're all up here, and it's already been a long evening, I think we'll all just stay up here tonight for the duration of the committee. So, Council Member McCary.
Thank you, President Isley. I do think this will be brief, so I appreciate everyone staying up here. We just have one item on the agenda, previously discussed farmers market amending city code, really just to make sure that we are matching our language to what's actually happening at the farmers market. This was brought forward by Councilmember Swank, so I would invite him to add any additional comments if you'd like to.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'll be very brief. Where we are at this point in time is that I have contacted the, what would her title be? The manager of the farmer's market, yes, Tanya Heyer. And what she sent me was the following definitions of all their policies and stuff. And her final comment was, I will ensure that this is on our agenda for our next executive committee meeting and get our recommended wording to you after we have that discussion. What I'm hoping, and I'm going to have to work with the law director on this, is that the current code says the city shall charter the Farmers Market Association as caretaker and regulator of this area, blah, 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 blah. I'm hoping that the language that they present, we can consider part of the charter and regulations so that we don't have to list 47 things. As you can do this, you can do that, so on and so forth. Once I get that, I will take that to Lisa, we'll get her opinion, and this may be very, very, very simple. And if that's the case, then all we'll have to take out is persons selling agricultural products. So that's where we are at this point. So as soon as their executive committee meets and gets this back to me, Chairman McCary, I get that to you, and then hopefully Lisa can sign off and we can move quickly with this. Again, let me say something, because since this is being videoed, this will not change anything at the farmer's market in terms of what the current vendors are allowed to sell. We're just bringing code in line with practice. Okay?
Very well said. I would invite comments, questions, first from members of the committee, other members of council, administration, mayor.
Councilmember Swank, I really applaud your bringing this forward to make this change. What I have heard on the days that I have attended farmers market, checking in recently, not only with the vendors themselves, but also customers at farmers market, they certainly appreciate and enjoy the space that they are currently using, both as marketers and marketees. In other words, the people purchasing from farmers market and those who are vending at farmers market, because they're not right on East State Street anymore. They're in a space that has greenery around it, which they really enjoy. It truly feels like a farmer's market, in a lot of other communities, and I've seen a lot of farmers markets. So I appreciate that you're just changing the language to match what it is that farmers market sells and how they process things, if they do process things. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Anything from Director Stone? How about the audience? All right, with that, we'll conclude our City and Safety Services meeting for the night.
Thank you. We'll move on to Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll try to keep the theme of being brief. We have a couple of items here, 3, disposition of vehicle and equipment, which includes 2 Gravely mowers from EPW for trade-in on new mowers, 2008 Toyota Prius, Athens Police Department, and a 2000 Chevy Cavalier Code Office. So I suppose the correct ordinance will come forward next week, and we'll get the ball rolling on that. No need for suspension, I don't believe. It'll just be a regular, yeah. Okay, next, the Safe Routes to School project from ODOT grant application. I'm assuming that this type of ordinance will, again, go through 3 readings, or should there be a suspension on this? Is there a time limit? Or deadline, I should say.
Sure, thank you, Member Eisner. I think there's a March deadline.
I was thinking that.
I don't want to misquote the exact date, but I want to say it's relatively early in the month, so we may ask you for suspension on the first or second reading, just to be allowed to apply. And previously with both this and the next discussion topic, there was not a piece of legislation necessary to apply.
Mm-hmm.
In recent years, they've changed that, and so we're just asking for authority to apply.
Okay. Oh, Member Solvay, Spielness.
Just a quick question. So, having been served on the pedestrian accessibility committee, we went through a whole discussion about Safe Routes to School project. So this has come up again, or is this a continuation of something? Because we had a whole list of stuff and everything, and so.
So, Safe Routes to Schools is a program designed to promote walking and biking to schools grades K through 8. It is not permissible to use Safe Routes to Schools funding on repairs. So it has to be new construction of a facility that doesn't already exist. In the past, we've been successful in building sidewalks in missing sections. An example is the sidewalk right beside Arts West on the Miller side of Arts West, where there's a retaining wall included, sidewalk on the west side of the middle school, where there previously was not a sidewalk, the stairs to West Elementary School, the sidewalk on Verona. All of these were projects where there was not a facility before. You can't use it to fix broken sidewalks. You can use it to build new. You can use it to build ADA accessible features that are not currently in place because it's an older area of the city. Likewise, you can use it to upgrade signals, not repair signals, but to upgrade signals. And so last year we applied for a curb ramp project near East Elementary School and a traffic signal upgrade near the middle school. We were not awarded that. The idea is to try to go after that again, hoping that there will be more students that live in the vicinity of, because part of the application is to submit a map of where the students actually live. And we have to ask the school district every year, hey, please tell us where all your students live. And they go, what do you want to know that for? And we say, well, because ODOT makes us turn that in order to apply for these funds. And so we'll try that again, and we think we could be successful going after this similar project again to meet some of the goals that you put forth in the committee's work.
Just for a little clarification, I'm sorry. So you could use it to widen sidewalks to make them ADA accessible, for example?
Could, if
Okay.
there's right of way. I mean, most
Yeah.
of these grants are $150,000, $200,000 maybe. These are small amounts of money that you get through this program. So when it comes to buying right of way, in order to do a widening project, it's probably not a viable funding stream. But if it is just widening inside a space that you already have right of way, you absolutely could.
Thank you very much.
Member Spike?
You mentioned East Elementary. By no means am I saying how you should write the grant, but as you well know, and you know if you're ever home during the day, East Elementary is a nightmare from a traffic standpoint and from a walking standpoint and a biking standpoint. One of the reasons it's a nightmare is prior to this time, everybody who went to East Elementary could conceivably walk. Now, because it's a primary building, pre-K through 3, we have students being bused and driven in from the other side of 33. And from 8:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock, and from 3 o'clock to 3:45 in the afternoon, it is a parking lot nightmare. And it's a safety nightmare, to the point that they have to put 2 school officials out there to direct traffic every day. So when you're putting this together, I think if you took a really long, hard look at East Elementary, it might strengthen, if somebody gets real smart and can come up with a good idea, it might strengthen our chances of getting this grant if that's one of the places you deem appropriate to put the money. Because I get lots of calls from constituents over there every day.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mayor, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to follow up on what Director Stone's answer was to Councilmember Spiel on this. We also, this is going back some time ago, applied for a Safe Routes to School project on Madison, thinking, let's look at putting a sidewalk, which we've all heard many, many times, of having accessibility on Madison. And we didn't get it because the numbers weren't there in ODOT's eyes for families living on Briarwood and Northwood, Columbus, or Columbia, no, Columbus, whatever that street is. It is Columbia. I know my streets.
Yeah. We only have another hour to go, so don't worry about it. So. Any other comments from members of the committee? Audience on these topics? Or the topic concerning disposal of equipment, I should have mentioned that. Anyone need a Gravely? No? Okay. Well, we'll go on to Transportation Alternative Program. Oh, doggone, screen just went. Curb ramp improvements, ODOT grant applications for the Columbus Road Phase 1 project. I'll hand that over to the Service Safety Director.
Thank you, Member Reisner. We attempted to be funded through a small cities grant in the last application round to Columbus Road to do an improvements project to improve primarily bike and pedestrian access on Columbus Road. We recognize Columbus Road isn't necessarily an arterial like some of the other arterials in the city, but we do believe, especially with the construction of the new hospital out there, that the demand for pedestrian and bike use of that and some access management to how people pull in and pull out of the properties associated or adjacent to Columbus Road will matter. We were suggested by ODOT that we should go after transportation alternatives money rather than small cities money. They thought we would score better in that, so that's what we're going to submit for this particular round. Again, we need a piece of legislation to allow us to apply for that.
Comments? Member Swain?
Phase 1 is from where to where?
I have to go back and look. I'll get you that answer.
Well,
I know
I guess
that-
this way. Is Phase 1 coming from out 550 interchange into town?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Because that's really where the people are, right?
Right.
The section between Dairy Queen and the bottom of the hill there's not as many people.
Okay.
Let me double check that though with Solly. I know that he broke it into 2 parts in order to try to take this off in bite sizes, and try to do it within what is available, as opposed to try to throw the whole thing at it and commit to us spending, $10 million when we can only get 2 from the grant program. So I need to ask him what the phasing is, and I will get that answer for you right away.
Thank you.
Any other comments? You are, and what is you do?
Rob Delac. I live on Morris Avenue here in the city. So I just want to comment, this sounds like a great project. I've heard a few bits and pieces about this from Surface Safety Director Stone in the past, and connecting the businesses out there so you can safely walk and bike would be a big improvement on Columbus Road. We have the bikeway connector that comes right to the roadway, but then once you get there, it's not a great place to be on a bike in particular or walk. Just a personal example, I was going to an eye doctor on the road, out on Columbus Road. I forget the name of which one it is, but it's one of the Athens eye doctors. It's out about 3/4 of the way out that road from where the bikeway connects. And I just stopped going. I changed eye doctors because I was not comfortable riding the bike out there. And that's me, who, you know, I ride the bike every day in this town. And I just was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I went to an eye doctor on Union now that I can get to easily from the bikeway in a different place. But so just an example, I wasn't even comfortable getting out there to a business, and I stopped going to that business because of it. So this is something I think we need to do. Thanks.
Mayor?
I just briefly add to this. You're all aware that we're going to have a freestanding emergency room hospital out there on Columbus Road. And so we're going to, by us applying for this now and being encouraged by ODOT to use this mechanism to do so, and I appreciate Mr. Delac's comments. You know, it really is being progressive and looking forward as to what we're going to see with growth in that corridor, as well as being able to, I think, you know, fully utilize our second longest single span bicycle pedestrian bridge in the state of Ohio. And to add to that with, you know, the WODA project and the 190 plus apartment units that are going in there for workforce housing, you know, it really opens up a safer route for someone who may be working at the hospital, but, you know, not earning as much as, say, a surgeon or one of the physicians who's going to be working at that hospital, some of the people working in the service sector in that hospital. So I think it's going to be a great improvement if we're successful in getting this through for phase 1, and then we'll look at phase 2 and phase 3 if there is a phase 3 as we go down this path.
Any other comments? Well, that concludes Transportation Committee.
And that means we're adjourned for the night at 9:08 p.m. We'll see you all.